but when the chips were down near the end of his life, he began talking. I was deeply moved as I listened to his experiences of actions and ships whose dates and names I was already familiar with from reading, but hearing the stories from Bill, speaking from his hospital bed in his low voice, brought inescapable reality to them in a way that was quite terrible. As a military historian, I knew the mechanics of how submarines were hunted and sometimes sunk during the Battle of the Atlantic. But one afternoon I listened to Bill describe the death by inches that was more common than the masterstroke cataclysm of which writers of fiction are so fond. He told me what the long hunt was like. The realization that the damaged submarine was no longer being careful about being quiet. How they could hear it running its motors faster, presumably as it tried to use its diving planes to resist descending as it became heavier due to the leaks. A submarine flies in the depths the way an airship flies in the air. It must keep near neutral buoyancy. Too heavy and it can fall out of control. Bill told me they'd hear it pumping, bailing bilges that were filling from myriad small leaks into a buoyancy tank. Then they'd hear the tank being blown out by compressed air, and then the motors running very hard at full speed, propellers desperately thrashing. And after more desperate, loud, and hard blowing, a hard crunch would be heard, as the submarine was crushed by the great pressure of the sea at tremendous depth. That particular last struggle lasted for nearly an hour. After 9 hours of hunting, during which dozens of depth charges and hedgehog projectiles had been expended on the submarine. Finally, large bubbles of air and oil would come to the surface, along with smashed woodwork and human remains. Lungs, entrails, a body. In history books and the official record, the destruction of this particular U-boat receives only a couple of lines. But for Bill, it was an ordeal that stayed with him all his life. He wept on his pillow at the memory of it. History is more than facts and dates. It is human memory and emotion. This book will serve to put faces and emotions on the facts and dates of the Battle of the Atlantic, the longest campaign of the Second World War. The battle was waged for nearly 6 years, 2,074 days. In human terms, that period represents 5 North Atlantic winters, thousands of bleak dawns, thousands of days and nights of vigilance despite desperate fatigue, thousands of days and nights during which death might arrive unheralded. The Royal Canadian Navy lost 24 warships, which took 2,000 of their people down with them. Canada's Merchant Navy Service lost 58 ships, which took over 1,100 of their people down with them. Despite this, the Allied navies escorted a total of 25,343 merchant ships across the wide Atlantic. Canadians are justifiably proud that the challenge placed before us was met and surmounted. We had no choice. This fight had to be won, or the war was lost. In just 6 years, Canada mobilized her naval service from a tiny peacetime seed to become the 3rd largest Allied navy in the world in 1945. Among the Allies, Canada was the nation with proportionally the largest percentage of its population in uniform as volunteers fighting to return peace to the world. Much has been written about the various actions and strategies of the conduct of the war, but this book will clothe those dry facts in the lived experiences of the men and women who endured those horrors and triumphs. Each of these individuals felt fear and conquered fear. They kept faith, practicing astonishing resilience even during the darkest days.